discovered China. By 221 BC, Emperor Qin Shi Huang had annexed the 6 rivaling kingdoms, establishing the first feudal empire in Chinese history. Later, construction of an unprecedented defensive wall began under his command. This barrier, known today as the Great Wall, has remained the longest defensive fortification in the world. Construction on the wall began at 214 BC. Over 5,000 kilometers long, it took 7 years to complete. According to historic records, the wall played a key role defending China from foreign invasions, as well as consolidating government power. The Great Wall formed a huge protective circle of China's territories. In China, defensive fortifications such as the Great Wall dated back as early as the 7th century BC. It was at that time that the nomadic tribes in the north began invading the Central Plains. Most of their forces were cavalries. In order to resist the nomad cavalry, the kingdoms in the Central Plains began constructing walls. In 214 BC, Emperor Qin Shi Huang linked all of these walls, forming the earliest Great Wall. In accordance with Emperor Qin Shi Huang's requirements, 2 parallel brick walls were erected. They then filled in the gaps with rammed earth and piles of wood. Normally 10 meters tall, walls built this way were very solid. Built with huge bricks, rammed earth, and gravel, such walls proved difficult to climb. According to historical records, hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians were mobilized in order to complete the Great Wall. Emperor Qin Shi Huang was one of the first emperors to build city walls as defensive measures. Following his example and in order to strengthen their rule, successive emperors never ceased constructing and reinforcing the wall. This is the Yumen Pass, a critical juncture in northwestern China. In many dynasties following the Qin Empire, such defense facilities were always built at transport hubs. The Yumen Pass, built by Emperor Wu Di of the Han Dynasty, served as a gateway between the Central Plains and the western regions. It offered natural barriers such as the marshes to the south and the vast lakes in the north. Further north are the Great Wall and the Shula River. Beacon towers were built every 3 to 5 kilometers on a section of the wall running east to west. South of this section lays another section running north to south, bypassing the Yumen Pass. The Yumen Pass is now no more than a small squared-shaped fort. Although most of its former splendor is now gone, the rammed earth is still clearly visible between the reeds. According to Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the Great Wall was built to fend off enemies. It was built in strategic places. Later dynasties adopted the same principle. Choice locations were often between two valleys, at a river's turning point, or transport hubs along the plains. In 1368 AD, at the beginning of the Ming Dynasty, the Ming Dynasty's founder, Emperor Hongwu, began the largest construction project in the Great Wall's history. In 1381 AD, Emperor Hongwu chose the Shanghai Pass in the northeast as the starting point of the Ming Great Wall. With the Yan Mountain to the north and the Bohai Gulf to the south, the pass was linked with the Great Wall. The Bohai Gulf and the Yan Mountain terrains dictated the Shanghai Pass be built atop the mountain crest. Some of the walls were even built across gentle mountain slopes in case enemies decided to attack from there. Its unique location and complete military facilities, the Shanghai Pass was soon dubbed the first and greatest pass under heaven. The Yumen Pass and the Shanghai Pass are only a small part of the defensive system. The winding Great Wall has many other defensive measures. Contrary to popular belief, the Great Wall is not continuous. It is disconnected in some places. The Qin Great Wall begins from Lintao and ends at Liaodong. The Han Great Wall begins at Xinjiang, stretching to Liaodong. The Ming Great Wall begins from the Jiayu Pass all the way to the Yalu River. Today, the Great Wall is composed of 3 major sections built during the Qin, Han, and Ming dynasties, running from east to west. A Chinese proverb concerning the defensive nature of the Great Wall says, "If one man guards the pass, 10,000 cannot get through." Construction of the Great Wall took more than 1,000 years. To China's rulers, the terrain encircled by the Great Wall meant power and strength. The Great Wall, lying on the northern lands of China, has witnessed many dynasties go by. However, no matter how hard, no matter how tall or how impregnable, a mere wall cannot fully safeguard any kingdom. In 1449, northern tribes declared war on the Ming Dynasty. Emperor Yingzong led China's armies himself. A fierce battle ensued near the Tumultuous fortress at Hebei province. Unprepared, the Ming Dynasty lost the battle. The walls of the Tumultuous fortress still bear traces of intense battles. The earth walls stretch in the fields and among the houses. The battle at Tumultuous was a turning point for China. Since this failure, the Ming government began adjusting its defensive strategies while consolidating and reconstructing the Great Wall. With economic developments during the Ming Dynasty, many large brick-making workshops appeared with rather advanced techniques. Some of these workshops are still well preserved today. Though empty, the relics of this once grand project still tell stories of the past. Brick production increased during the Ming Dynasty. They were no longer a precious building material. Many parts of the Ming Great Wall were built using massive bricks. The Jiayu Pass is the westernmost starting point of the Ming Great Wall. It is also the best preserved section of the wall. It is one of the most majestic passes in Gansu Province, northwestern China, and a crucial stop on the Silk Road. The pass was composed of an inner city, outer city, and moats. Today, only the inner city walls, made with rammed earth covered with huge bricks on the outside, remains. On the brick's surface, carved names of the craftsmen are barely visible, yet their talent and hard work remained in the bricks themselves. Though constantly strengthened and repaired for more than 2,000 years, the Great Wall ultimately failed in its defense of China. To anyone, both commoner and emperor, peace was a shared goal. It has been said that the strongest wall lies not on a mountain crest, but in the people's hearts, and that their unity will decide a dynasty's prosperity or decline. While the Great Wall encircled China, cities began surrounding themselves with walls. Soon, large city walls were built around China's cities and towns. The city of Pingyao dates back to the 14th century AD. In the early days of the Ming Dynasty, Chinese urban planners were ordered to plan cities according to centralized standards specified by the authorities. Pingyao is square-shaped. A straight axis runs north to south along the city center. In the city center rests the city tower. Offices and temples, with their golden and green glazed tiles, contrast with the simple gray tiled brick houses. late Ming Dynasty, numerous wars led to growing social unrest. The city of Kaiping in Guangdong Province, southern China, was an intense state of social chaos. People fleeing from the Central Plains found no safe haven in Kaiping. They began protecting their homes in a unique fashion. During the 16th century, a Kaiping family by the name of Guan constructed a grand shelter called the Yinglong Tower. It was called Diao Lo, meaning both a fort and a house. Facing south, the three-story Yinglong Tower covers 152 square meters. The four embankments built on its corners look simple yet sturdy. As the most ancient Diaolo in Kaiping, the Yinglong Tower helped the villagers through many natural disasters and wars. The locals called it the life-saving tower. From the day it was built, it represented the locals' wishes of a peaceful life. These towers contributed a new and valuable asset to China's rich architectural history. The locals' wishes live on through these towers. China's various cities and walls represented the centralization of the government and the pursuit of peace and happiness by their subjects. Throughout China's turbulent history, though tall and solid, the city walls could no longer impede dynasties overturning and the unfolding pages of history. Though great efforts were put into the construction of the Great Wall, it failed to protect China from the invading Manchurians. The Ming Dynasty was usurped, replaced by the Qing Dynasty, a reign which lasted for over 300 years. The Qing emperors concentrated on constructing an intangible Great Wall. In the 17th century, Russian forces were frequently invading northern China. Under Emperor Kangxi's command, the Qing armies repelled the Russians. Though the war ended, the borders were far from peaceful. A Qing general suggested that the Great Wall should be repaired. However, Emperor Kangxi did not approve. To him, the most important weapon to defend the country was not the Great Wall, but the people it was built to protect. Emperor Kangxi was the Qing dynasty's second emperor. His rule lasted for 61 years, the longest in Chinese history. An insightful politician and decision-maker, Emperor Kangxi decided to cultivate people's morale instead of building walls. To him, the people's morale was the Great Wall. To solve the Russian threat, Emperor Kangxi trained Mongolian troops in the north. With the people's support, the Qing dynasty had no more need for great walls. Construction of the Great Wall finally ended. Yet the Qing dynasty rulers still needed an icon to represent their supreme power. The method of building walls with rammed earth covered by bricks was adopted in the construction of the royal palace. This technique was also used in constructing Beijing's inner and outer city walls. The Forbidden City is a model of ancient royal palaces in Chinese history. It is no mere complex, but a representation of the emperor's absolute power over China. The Forbidden City was a reflection of imperial ambitions. From its inception, the Great Wall has been through great changes. Today, it is one of China's most recognizable symbols. Great Wall, the Diaolou, and Pingyao's walls were no mere structures. They stood for the Chinese pursuit of peace and prosperity. China's history, thousands of years old, is still accompanied by the sounds of hammers, constantly building these cities and walls.